What's up and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod. We're giving you your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan. I am here with my co-host Dave, Martin, Son, and Dave. What an episode we got for the people today, huh?
Yeah, man. It's jam-packed like always.
Jam-packed. We got IP big and small. We got music, TV, movies, news. So before we jump right into it, hit that subscribe button if you're on our YouTube page. If you're listening on iTunes, also subscribe and give us a 5-star rating and review. And then if you go to our SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod, you can find us any way you want to be listening to us. We appreciate all the feedback. Also follow our Twitter at nostalgiapod. So we got lots to talk about. So I guess we'll start with one big IP and finish with another. Star Wars Celebration was this past weekend. A lot of news came out of there. Probably the biggest piece of news, the new title and trailer for Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. That was my horrible Palpatine laugh. Yeah, man, what did you think of the title and the trailer?
Definitely didn't see the title coming, like most people. The initial leak was it'll be called Will of the Force, but like Star Wars leaks are never accurate, which is never. But the Rise of Skywalker, something very very on the nose, I guess. And obviously it opens up a lot of questions, and of course you reference the return of Emperor Palpatine with the laugh at the end of the trailer, and between returning to another touchstone like Palpatine as well as Lando, which we did know was coming. And then this title, there's a lot of questions about what JJ and Kathleen Kennedy have in store for ending the sequel trilogy, wrapping up this 9-movie Skywalker saga. We know they're going to move on from this era, this family, with the Benioff and Weiss series and the Rian Johnson series to come. So the questions, though, that come up from the title, I think, are more pointed than we were expecting, because I think you can take it any way you want regarding how much, quote, retconning is going to happen from The Last Jedi, namely Rey's parentage not mattering, the death of Supreme Leader Snoke, things like that. But I thought the trailer, again, just a teaser, not a whole lot in there, looked really cool. Rey doing that anime shit with the backflip and slow-mo, doing slow-mo again. They just introduced slow-mo for the first time in Last Jedi, so it's cool to see that again. Mad Max Fury Poe looked cool, and that shot leading up to the crashed Death Star 2 on some nuclear winter Endor moon, man. That looks really cool. So I'm excited, but I was already in the bag for it. What did you think?
The hype level is on 100 million trillion at this point. One of the best trailers I can remember seeing, where just like everything about it drew me in and I thought it was interesting. The only two that I think compare to it for me are Black Panther and Us, which I thought those two trailers also were just captivating. The style of it is phenomenal. You know, people were putting comparisons up to North by Northwest, which is very high praise, especially for a Star Wars movie. All the little Easter eggs in the trailer were really exciting. And I'm just really excited about it. I felt the title was more of a shot. I don't know if it was a shot necessarily, but seemed to be a little bit like, Rian Johnson's been saying a lot of stuff, but we're going to, maybe not all of it is true. Maybe we're going to backtrack just a little bit here. And we can't really tell too much. I mean, with, Carrie Fisher's passing, I think they're going to have to handle things very tastefully and probably draw Luke in a little bit more than maybe they expected to. So it could be alluding to a lot of different things, but overall, just the style choices and the way it looks, I could see this being I think the first Star Wars movie nominated for Best Picture. It certainly looks like it has all the makings of it right now, and if it lands the ship, so to speak, I couldn't see why it wouldn't be. Probably my favorite part was just seeing Kylo Ren just like suplexing dudes in the forest just for shits and giggles. Yeah, Adam Driver, man, we're gonna talk about him later, but dude's just a stud.
Yeah, the thing is with the title, and people are taking this how they want to go. I really don't think they're going to retcon as much as people that want to see that may be thinking. I just don't think there's enough time to wrap a trilogy while also trying to change things previously introduced in the last film. I just don't think you can make it work. And I think the title, in fact, and this is what I kind of hope I want to see, is I think the Rise of Skywalker, maybe Skywalker it's more of like a mantle, an ideal than just a strict bloodline, And the fact that even though Rey isn't in fact a Skywalker or Obi-Wan's daughter or anything like that, doesn't matter, because that was kind of the message of Last Jedi, which I think is really cool. And I really like The Last Jedi for starting to overturn the tropes of Star Wars and the tropes of sci-fi. And I feel like, yes, maybe we can do some things like, yes, her Luke saber, the Skywalker lightsaber is fixed. I don't think many people thought that was not going to happen. Kylo Ren's mask is being fixed. Whether he keeps it the whole time, I don't know. But I really don't think the parentage part, per se, is going to be totally flipped around yet once again. I just don't like what that represents. The thing, though, is JJ, a lot of people that didn't like The Last Jedi really were happy that JJ was coming in for episode 9. Remember, originally it was Colin Trevorrow from Jurassic World. Mm-hmm. And JJ doesn't have a good track record of perhaps landing the ship. He's really good at setting things up and making really cool propositions and questions, but he also hasn't put himself in the position to really end things that often. So I think, that's perhaps a concern if you want to come up with one. I mean, he has Chris Terrio, the screenwriter, who's co-wrote and wrote both good and bad movies with him. And JJ talked about how he needed Chris to help him because JJ had to work on the story while also work on, all the logistics of being a director of a movie this scale. So it seems like everything went smoothly. And again, the trailer looks really cool, but the ultimate question I think remains to be seen is how they try and land the ship when we're really referencing a true touchstone of the past once again in Palpatine, and whether Palpatine is just some kind of Sith perversion of a Force ghost or just a holocron, or maybe he's physically trapped in the Death Star. Who the fuck knows, right? We'll find out. So of course I'm really excited, and there's more Star Wars coming soon. So it's every worldwide trend, the top 10 were all Star Wars trailer related Friday afternoon, which is pretty wild,
Yeah.
So I'm pretty hyped nonetheless.
I mean, I don't think anyone could have guessed Palpatine coming back. Like, who could have even put that on the board? Just a huge flex and just a really deep pull, which I think got people very excited. I think what you brought up are valid things, JJ not really finishing series, but I have a feeling this one's going to end up pretty good. Very excited for it. Something else that looks like it's going to be a must buy a subscription for when it comes out, Disney Plus. Give me a little breakdown of what we can be expecting with that, since we've been talking so much about like Apple Plus, ESPN Plus, pretty much every plus you can think of.
Yeah, Hulu used to be Hulu Plus as well.
Yep.
Disney Plus got unveiled in just its own keynote last Thursday, and we knew a lot about it. We knew a lot about the shows, but we didn't know when it was coming and the exact price point, things like that. We were told it was going to be on the cheaper end, and in fact, it is exactly that. It's $6.99, and you can actually get an annual subscription where it costs even less. And I think that's quite the flex, considering the breadth of desirable projects that will be on the service. Because again, it's all of Disney, Pixar, Lucasfilm, Marvel, Disney Originals, Disney Channel, Disney Animation, everything, right? And then a lot of the other Fox stuff. Like, we know that Disney Plus will be the exclusive home of all 30 seasons of The Simpsons. Personally, I thought The Simpsons perhaps was a little too edgy, may have been on Hulu. Disney now controls Hulu, but no, it's going to be on Disney Plus. And I think that's they just kind of put all their cards on the table. I think the Disney stock briefly hit an all-time high the day after, and Netflix stopped to drop a little bit. And I think we talked a lot about the impact of Apple and Disney on Netflix on our Apple TV Plus episode. So please check out that segment on YouTube. But I think Disney Plus officially entering the fray and also coming on guns blazes. Like we saw some shots of The Mandalorian, which will be on the series at launch, which is launching November 12th, I believe. And you have that. You have all these Marvel Studio shows that Kevin Feige's directly involved in, WandaVision, Loki, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as well as this Hawkeye one. Quite impressive lineup. And whereas Apple definitely kind of slow played it, they have a lot of prestige shows that sound appealing, but the overall breadth of content seems much slighter than Disney, whereas Disney's like, we have the best library in the game. Here it is at a cheap price. We dare you not to pay for it. And it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and here's all these new live action movies that we've just released within the new year. And the only place you can get it is through our subscription service. And we know your kids like it, so here you go. I just definitely am excited to have more Jeremy Renner in my life, man. That Hawkeye series, I was clamoring for it, so couldn't be more excited if I wanted to be. Yeah,
it's just funny that Renner is gonna actually be Hawkeye, like in earnest, as his own starring, but it's also with Kate Bishop, the comic character. So yeah, it's gonna be a short run, if just one miniseries, and they'll pass it off. So yeah, man, Renner, he wasn't really Hawkeye that much if you really count the screen time, but alas. Also, Lady and the Tramp, the live action series that they've already filmed and done the mocap for. Lady is voiced by Tessa Thompson, and the Tramp is voiced by Justin Theroux. Again, nothing I don't think anyone was clamoring for, but I mean, I'm gonna watch
sure.
it. So.
Yeah, Tessa Thompson, man, she just keeps doing these big movies. That Men in Black coming out, gonna be in this miniseries. Just give her more work. She's fantastic.
Get off Westworld.
Yeah. Can't win them all, I guess. Any last thoughts on Disney Plus? We got a lot to go to, so I'm thinking maybe we keep it moving and we'll talk about that as it gets closer.
There's some other stuff we know is coming. The Rogue One cash-in spin-off. We know Alan Tudyk's back for K2SO and that as well. Nothing else really reported on. Clone Wars Season 7, we already knew about that. There's a High School Musical series. There's a ton of shit, so that's what you expect. But it sounds like it's going to be impressive with a lot to offer right away, and it's at a good price. So I feel like they're going to get a lot of subs, unsurprisingly.
Shouts to Billy D. Man, the fact he's going to be in Mandalorian looking cool as shit. Just
Billy D?
Oh, sorry. Carl Weathers.
I had a friend do the same thing.
I knew once I said it, I was like, that doesn't sound right. Carl Weathers. Shout out Carl Weathers. Anyways, moving on. Shout out to BTS dropping their second project that we're going to be reviewing. I think this is like their fourth or fifth project at this point. Yeah. We talked about Love Yourself Answer, which dropped last year. Very big album. BTS, huge K-pop band. They dropped this EP, or maybe it's an album. I guess it's short.
It's an EP.
It's only 7 songs. Map of the Soul, Persona. I mean, first off, the names of these albums are just a little much for me. Like,
colons. They love their colons.
They love colons. I prefer things like Ventura or Arizona Baby, which we'll be talking about soon. But this, I was very surprised. So I put this album on at the gym, and I was like, this might be a tough listen at the gym, some BTS here, because, Love Yourself Answer. I thought there was some kind of soft songs on there. There was a lot to like, but it wasn't workout music. This went hard at the gym, dude. I mean, like the guitars, the drums. This was a much more rock sounding album to me, or project to me for BTS than their last couple projects to listen to. And they really just like made this a lot heavier just by bringing these like super, I don't know if generic's the right word, but just like these, I don't know, just it wasn't like anything that was spicy about it, but it was just like heavier, which I appreciated. So I ended up enjoying this. I don't know if there's anything that like stood out too much. I mean, maybe Home, but there's a lot to like on here in just a short time. What did you think about BTS Map of the Soul Persona?
Yeah, I also didn't find it like super impressive, but I still listened to it, I think, twice in a row. Like I finished it, it's again just a short listen, and then I just immediately like put it back on to try and like re-listen to some of the songs as I was doing something. Next thing I know, I finished it again. And yeah, I think some of the beats are a little samey, a little glitzy, but you're right. I think there is a distinct choice to change up the production a little bit because, like you said, some of their other stuff can just sound like some soft pop. And again, that's more or less what they do, but they're talented vocalists. Like again, I there's a lot of them. I still don't quite recognize each guy, but like obviously we know RM, the front man, he's really talented, and they sing, they rap, they do a lot of stuff. And I think an EP like this is just a cool little like flavor, little palate cleanser for you if you're just trying to jump in and understand like what is BTS exactly. I think a song like Boy With Love, which was the hyped up song with featuring Halsey, briefly featuring Halsey. I think that song, I think it's okay, it's fine. But despite it being just okay, in my opinion, it bulldozed the YouTube 24-hour view record that Blackpink just set. I mean, they beat it by like almost 20 million views, 74.6 million views in the first 24 hours, 100 million views in less than 2 days. BTS now has 3 of the fastest watched videos in 24 hours in the top 10. Like the BTS army is real, and you can understand why they care so much. Because I feel like this is a band that can occupy a lot of different spaces within their sound while still sounding like themselves. Like a song like Dionysus, the last track, has a lot of switch ups in that, but also has like a lot of like really easy like arena chants and stuff. And I think that's what a lot of their fans want to hear. So BTS is they just did SNL, man. That's a huge moment for K-pop in general. So I think again, this is not I don't think this is like amazing, but I don't know if they've made anything amazing yet, but they're still really, I think, solid and really huge already. So I'm really, again, curious to see what they continue to do, because I think they're just getting better and more interesting as they continue to release music.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's going to be criticism of them going to a bit of a heavier sound and making these production choices. But even though these songs probably aren't their best, I applaud them for trying something, especially when you're this big. You don't have to, necessarily change lanes, but they keep trying, which I think is great. And they still flow together really well. Like, these are still competently made pop songs. It's just maybe they aren't going to be, the songs that they remembered for 10, 15 years down the road. So BTS, definitely, and I thought you made a really good point. If you haven't jumped into them, this is a good place to start because you get a real sense of who they are. And I think this is a little more accessible than maybe some of their earlier stuff, which maybe need to be more K-pop inclined to really enjoy. Point. So why don't we jump, though, to Intellexuals. So if you know anything about Chance the Rapper, you probably know Donnie Trumpet and The Social Experiment. Well, these are 2 of the guys from, or it might even just be The Whole Social Experiment, but I'm pretty sure it's just 2 of the guys from it, correct?
There's more guys in it, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's Nico, Segal, and Nate Fox. And I guess this would be EBM, but it's really like a genre-bending type album that infuses a bunch of different sounds. You got jazz in here. You got some classical at times, definitely some EDM and hip-hop. So it's pretty interesting listen. And the self-titled album, their first one, I thought was probably one of the most surprising albums of the year. Up there with Lil Sims for me. Just that unexpected, but really blown away with how good it was. Before we kind of get into why, I want to just kind of get your sense of the album and if you enjoyed it or not.
I did enjoy it. I think Nico, who used to go by Donnie Trumpet, he's since axed that moniker. You can probably guess why. Nico and Nate, as part of The Social Experiment, when they released Surf back in 2015, I think that was a project that was the first project that Chance was heavily on after the big blow up with Acid Rap. And I thought Surf had probably too many features, really up and down, but you can still kind of get that lineage of The Social Experiment, understand what this jazz inclined band is about. And I mean, they tour with Chance, work with Chance, you're familiar with them. But it was kind of an up and down thing. I think Intellexual, Nico and Nate, they didn't focus. In fact, they branched out, as you mentioned, with genre. But I think this is just kind of just more impressive musically, because I think it's more about like their talents specifically, as opposed to just everyone's friends hanging out together and making music. So I liked it a lot. I actually like to listen to it again, because I think there's a lot of moments on here that I want to revisit. But I liked it. What really jumped out to you? Because again, like, this is our first time hearing these guys make this kind of music on their own. You know?
Yeah. So what jumped out to me most was just how, I mean, first of all, this is totally right up my alley. I enjoy like chill music just in general is by far my favorite music to listen to. And this album straight through is chill. Like, I don't think there's many moments that are gonna like you're gonna find yourself like head bobbing to or like getting really like jazzed up about. But it's just really well produced and well mixed. But also, it's so interesting how they go about these songs, and they like you mentioned, these moments. Like, there's on Money, like the way that they incorporate the strings and then slowly start working in snaps and like pattern drum beats by the end. It really like makes you. It almost feels like you're like underwater, like swimming underwater or something like that. Like, it really make you feel like you're on adventures in these songs, and you're just seeing different things pass you by throughout, and it's really well done. And it actually kind of reminded me of the DJ duo Air, who I believe it was back in either the early 2000s or it might have been late 90s, dropped the album Moon Safari, which is one of my favorite EDM albums to go back to, just because it kind of creates the same feel where you're kind of going on this adventure and seeing these things pass by, but you're on this like same plane. It's almost like going on a safari, so to speak, but you just have these like really weird and interesting things going by, and like, that was really well done, or I just noticed that was great. So if you haven't listened to Moon Safari by Air, I'd recommend that, and then listen to this. I think you'll hear a lot of similarities in that. I guess the songs that stood out to me were probably Money, Call You, and Boca. But I want to hear from you first. Like, what stood out to you? What did you find most appealing about this album?
Yeah, I like Boca too. It's funny, the next song in the track list, Rockstar, has a feature from Knox Fortune, another Chicago artist. Yeah. Knox, we know him from All Night on Coloring Book, of course, that chorus. And that really nasally singing that he does. And the way that song kind of just immediately flows in, and they have Knox, and there's not a lot of guests on this, but Knox comes in and just kind of rides like the instrumentation that they're already laying down. I thought it was really cool. And then you have Shoddy, the song after that, featuring one of the few raps on the project, Vic Mensa. Vic and Nico, of course, both became well known as part of the Kids These Days band from Chicago. That was, of course, before Social Experiment was formed. The Save Money Click with Chance. This is deep underground Chicago shit, basically, in like 2012, 2011, around that time. And I think they made some really cool like rap rock songs at that time, but to have Vic and Nico, obviously they worked together since, but have them come back, and I think Vic just effortlessly drops down a solid verse again on this really smooth music that Nico and Nate are making. I think it's just a really cool vibe, this whole project, and it was pretty under the radar as a release. I kind of just want to hear them make more stuff, just keep putting shit out. Like, we know Nate's been working with Chance on Chance 4. But Nico, it hasn't been as much anyway. But, I mean, apparently Nico and Nate have a studio in, like, Burbank or whatever. I mean, I want these guys to keep working on their own stuff, because clearly they have some really cool ideas. So I think the whole thing's a vibe. And again, I want to listen to it again, because there's some things that I feel like I just kind of glanced over. I didn't take the time to really make note of. But I think the features when they popped up stood out to me for, I guess, not just being distracting, just kind of fitting in. But overall, I think that kind of speaks to just the kind of, they're both engineers at the end of the day, and they really, know how to make stuff that sounds good, and that's what this is.
Definitely agree. One of their songs is already on our playlist, so check that out on Spotify. Nowstalgia Best of 2019. I'm hoping that they'll do some collaborations. I know that they've worked with Chance, but obviously Frank Ocean and Kanye, they've also had a couple songs with. So I'm hoping to see them jump on more people and hopefully start to move things, or add their flair to different songs. Someone that has a definite flair to his most recent EP, Kevin Abstract, Arizona, baby. leader of Brockhampton, which, I mean, I guess it's kind of hard to say that there's a leader because there's so many of them and they all do different things, but he's probably the standout, I guess I would say.
Frontman, face.
Frontman, sure.
New
and so, David, Kevin Abstract, up to this point, what's his solo work look like?
Yeah, he has, I forget the name. There's a mixtape he dropped, M something, I forget. He dropped that in like 2014, 2013. It's got a yellow cover. And at that time, he was already, connected with a lot of the people that he would form Brockhampton with. I know Ramil, the main engineer, the producer they have, worked on that first tape with him. But Kevin didn't really blow up at all and really become successful as a tourer until American Boyfriend, his solo album. And, at that time, he became well known for being, openly gay artist in hip hop, which is obviously not common. And also, making this like soulful, singy rap and, again, just being an introspective guy. And then, by around that time, this is like 2016, the rest of the Brockhampton crew started to become well known. And of course, they dropped the Saturation trilogy in 2017, following up a brief Brockhampton project they had dropped before that didn't get much traction. Off we go, we know the rest. But yeah, Kevin was obviously the first of the group to get any attention as a solo artist. And after Amir being exiled from the group last year, Iridescence coming out and being, I think, a good project, but not as warmly received as the Saturation trilogy. There's a lot of questions about what this crew is going to do. They seemed like they were definitely in their feelings on Iridescence, partially to the detriment, I think, of the enjoyment of the music, in my opinion. They're still good. But now this is really our first taste of anything solo from any of them since last September. So, having Kevin be the first one, given his experience as a solo act, I think just kind of makes sense. But again, this was pretty out of the blue, just this 3-track EP coming basically out of nowhere.
But it was really good, though. I thought it was fantastic. Two of the three songs I thought were really, really solid. Joyride was probably the one that I thought could have been a little bit better, but Big Wheels and Georgia were just phenomenal to me. With Big Wheels, obviously he's talking about being a gay artist and kind of how that's influenced his or affected his relationships within his society environment. But I thought he flowed really well over it and led into that breakdown at the end of the song so beautifully. I was like really blown away at how just the song was composed and structured. And then Georgia, just that song is a masterpiece in my mind. No doubt that one has to go on the playlist and probably is up there for one of my favorite songs of the year at this point.
Yeah, I tweeted that I thought this EP is the perfect sampler of Kevin, and why Kevin Abstract is a really both inspiring but also impressive and exciting face in hip hop and alternative hip hop, because I think you get a lot of what he does on this right here. Big Wheels, that's one verse. That's less than 2 minutes, that song. It's clearly just a piece, really. He could have made that into a full song if he wanted to. But I think it still fucking rules the way it is. Again, some hard-ass LGBT bars. You don't get that often. It was awesome. But deeper meaning, but also the shit just bangs, right? And then you mentioned Georgia. Joyride, I think, is just kind of it's similar to Georgia, but it's not as good. I've definitely been skipping that when I've been repeating this, but listen to other songs quite a lot. Georgia, very similar to a lot of other songs he made in the Saturation trilogy. The, rapping mix up with singing choruses, distorted vocals. Kevin has done a lot of these kind of choruses before, and maybe this doesn't reinvent the wheel for what Kevin does, but I think if you're a fan of Brockhampton or Kevin, if you like lyrics with some punch, alternative hip hop, I think this is great. And obviously, he's indebted to Andre 3000. It's not a bad thing, in my opinion. I don't mind hearing the influences,
No, definitely not. And especially because it's not like he's being a copycat. He's obviously just, I think, very inspired by the way Three Stacks has gone about his work and the way that he crafts his work. So, we were talking or texting yesterday about it, and you mentioned that there might be some more EPs on the way.
Yeah, he posted Instagram of 3 dates, the 11th, 18th, and the what is that, 26th, 5th, whatever. 3 Thursdays. The first Thursday was this past Thursday, and Arizona Baby dropped. So everyone's kind of theorizing that he'll drop some more EPs. Who knows? Be really cool. Because again, this was just 3 songs. I'd like to hear 6 more. So we'll keep you tuned in, and if he drops some more, we'll obviously review them, because I think his music, Brockhampton's music, is just must listen, just because it's so exciting and unpredictable.
Absolutely. Someone that is not as unpredictable, but certainly just as quality as Kevin Abstract is our guy, Anderson Paak. Dropped Ventura this past weekend, follow up to Oxnard, which came out at the end of 2018. Was on, I believe, both of our top albums of the year. Just a really solid album. Yeah. And I think the thing that about Oxnard that stood out so much is, I mean, Anderson Paak is known for having basically like really flowing into this funk, old school type, G-funk, not even psychedelia really, but just kind of like that like jazz infused rock vibe. And he flows through that so well. But Oxnard was a little bit more rappy. It was a little bit more, he's bringing bars, he's bringing guests on, they're going back and forth. He's still playful on it, still the same Pac, but just kind of that sound became a little bit more rap influenced. Ventura almost seems like too much of a correction from that. If that was the critique of the album, Ventura to me feels like he just wanted to get right back to Malibu, but with I think less to say, which it makes it just a little bit disappointing. Which I mean, I'm kind of like hating on this right now. I thought this album was still really good, and I enjoyed most of the songs on here. But for an Anderson Paak work, I felt like it just fell a little short.
Yeah, it's funny because as you mentioned, Oxnard, a little more hip hop indebted. Hip hop features Kendrick, Snoop.
Good
word.
word.
The album already, but polarizing with his hardcore fans, and obviously he's been well known on the internet for some time. Dr. Dre really put him on the map, and then the Grammys have recognized him recently, and everyone knows about Cheeky Andy now, and for a good reason. He's awesome. But I really liked Oxnard because I thought it was, a little different than what he's been doing, and still good. A song like Savior's Road, I think it's just a straight banger. That's just a deep cut on Oxnard. Most people don't even talk about that song. But here on Ventura, you're right. He just goes back to Malibu. And I think most of these songs are really soulful, really smooth. I like a lot of these tracks. The problem is I would just listen to Malibu over this. That's my thing. Because there's not like deep, engaging lyrics that I want to like get back to. And again, Oxnard maybe was a little lyrically up and down. It's definitely vulgar on that one. But here Ventura, like, because it almost comes across as a quick course correction. Maybe it was a little undercooked in the writing department. I think that's my conclusion. But because it's so similar to Malibu without reaching the highs of Malibu, I'll just go back to Malibu because that's an album I love. You know what I mean? And that's not Anderson's fault per se. That doesn't make Ventura bad. But that's just the world it exists in, And
I think that's just more of a testament to Pac's past work. I mean, Malibu is a classic. That's an album that if you are into current hip hop in any way, you really need to listen to, because there's just so much on there to dig through and enjoy. And I think actually a word that you used that is something I really love about Anderson, but also I think hurt him on this project is smooth, because I almost feel like this was too smooth. And where Malibu really shone was when he was able to take these smooth songs, but really make them pop with, things that you wouldn't expect, or things that just made the songs feel more lively. And I think this album is more like you're gonna put the top down in your convertible and like ride down Ventura Boulevard, and just kind of like vibe out to this, rather than put this on at a club and dance to it. And I think both types of albums are great in their own way, but I would just prefer something like Malibu because it's just more fun overall. There were a lot of guests on this. You had Andre 3000, Smokey Robinson, Brandy, which I was like, damn, Brandy on the track. Nate Dogg, obviously on the closing one. Which guest verses stood out to you?
I thought the Andre verse was solid, like a lot of his recent guest features. Really competently made, but ultimately I don't think stands out all that much. I really like Smokey Robinson. I believe Make It Better was the second single after King James. I think that track is one of my favorites. Song right after that, Reaching Too Much with Lala Hathaway, I thought was awesome. And I really like the Brandy feature as well on Jet Black. And again, like, he's really good at having features that complement his songs. And this has been the case through all of his records. And they always fit the vibe, fit what he's going for on that track. And again, these are inspired choices. Brandy, no one's really using Brandy right now, so you have to really want that, right? Andre, of course, you have to have the clout to even get him to do it for you. Smokey Robinson, like, these are great. And Nate Dogg, R.I.P. It's like these are great inspired choices, and also not the flashiest ones. You could get more high profile features even in this. Like, you could have got SZA on here if you wanted to, but you didn't. So I think well chosen. I don't find any of the songs offensive. It's just, as you, I think, put really well, it's just sometimes it just kind of smoothly blends, and sometimes that can be detriment.
Yeah, it's actually funny. The first time I listened to this, I had my Spotify just on shuffle, which I didn't recognize. And I was just kind of listening through, and I was like, oh, this album kind of flows really well. And I looked down, I saw it was on shuffle, and I was like, huh. That's actually, I think, a testament to the work that these songs can still flow together and feel so cohesive, even if they're jumbled around. My favorite song was definitely "What Can We Do" featuring Nate Dogg. I just really thought the beginning of that captured me. It kind of has that like "Tomorrow Never Knows" type sound at the beginning of it, and then goes into this very just like smooth, like, I don't know, just a very vibey song. There's no other way I can really put it. I just was like, finishing up my run on the treadmill, was just like, man, this song is fucking great. And this is what Anderson does well. I mean, I'm probably going to listen to What Can We Do like 10 times in the next like 3 days, just because these songs get stuck in my head. And he's such a great artist that he can have a down album like this, and it still could be one of the best like 15, 20 albums of the year.
Exactly. I had one question for you. So he's dropped 4 solo albums: Venice, Malibu, Oxnard, and now Ventura. If you didn't know, those are all locales, towns, cities in the greater LA County. Right? What area of, LA should he name his next album after? I'm trying to think. Like, everything's more or less one syllable, so we can probably throw out Hollywood, Inglewood, Long Beach, Manhattan, Long. What about Laguna? That's not quite LA, but I'm just trying to think. Like, Irvine. There's a lot of options. I'm just curious what he picks. Burbank, I don't know. Does he ever go to Burbank, make some movies?
I would like to see him do Manhattan Beach. I think these are all after beaches, right? That's like
they're all on the coast, yeah.
I'd like to see him do Manhattan and make it like a real New York album. Maybe bring in some of these Beast Coast people as some features. I think he could do a really good job with that. And it'd be kind of a double play on meaning, but whatever he does, he's going to do well. So. How would you rank the albums, just kind of putting you on the spot?
I have Malibu clear and away number 1. I mean, I still download my music. I know I'm a fossil, but I only download the songs I actually like, so I don't download full albums. But I have like 8 or 9 Malibu tracks downloaded, which speaks a lot because usually I don't keep that many songs off project. Second, I have Oxnard, then Venice, then Ventura, I think.
Yeah, I think I would probably have it Malibu, Oxnard, Venice, then Ventura. But all really, really solid albums. So definitely check that out. And again, go to our Spotify playlist where we have 2 songs from him on there. Nowstalgia Best of 2019. And let's jump into some movies now. So Donald Glover, headline Coachella Friday night. He had some very interesting dialogue with the crowd about people who recently passed away, including Nipsey Hussle, Mac Miller, his father, and how there's a good chance that at least one person in the 100,000 people there probably is not going to live till next week, which was not received super well by the crowd in attendance. Can't really imagine why. But one of the cool things that came along with this, so obviously Coachella is streamed on YouTube. After his performance, a new movie called Guava Island, directed by Hiro Murai, starring Donald Glover and Rihanna, was dropped on Amazon. Amazon Prime. It was free. So if you had Amazon, you can go watch it. We watched it. It's about 50 minutes, 55 minutes. Pretty quick watch. Dave, what'd you think about this? Good, bad, in between?
I'll say in between. I think it's a movie. It's a movie that is a little short and thus a little undercooked, but presents interesting premises, and I think still, for what it is, still works pretty well. And the most engaging part of it is Glover's use of his own tracks into the story.
Yep.
This Is America, I think, is probably the best use, where he performs that song in like a warehouse with the warehouse sounds replicating the beat that we're used to. Thought that was really cool. But he also does Summertime Magic, Feels Like Summer, Saturday, that cut he performed on, I think, was SNL last year. It was pretty cool. You know, ultimately I thought Rihanna and Letitia Wright, for that matter, are underused.
Yeah.
But this is a movie that kind of has to move quite quickly because it's so short. What did you think?
I almost didn't even believe it was Letitia Wright, because I was like, man, she was just in Black Panther, and now she's just doing this like bit role in this Donald Glover movie. Like, I don't know. And Rihanna too. Like, you were just in Ocean's 8, and like probably one of the coolest parts, if not most well acted, of the movie. But still, like, come on, you're just gonna play this like small role in this. Like, you guys should be doing so much more. Although Rihanna is just like the most interesting person to look at in the world. Like, every time she does anything, I just can't stop. Like, yeah, it's unbelievable. Like, anytime she's on screen, I just feel like you can't take your eyes off her. It's amazing. I thought some of the ideas presented were pretty interesting. Overall, I felt like it almost made like a better extended music video, which I think is kind of similar to what you're saying. Those were the times when I felt most engaged. I didn't find myself super impressed with like the parts where Donald Glover's character, I'm forgetting his character's name, and like the big boss who runs the island, like we're having their interactions. Yes, I was like, okay, like, don't really care. I get that it's moving the story along, kind of saying like capitalism sucks your soul, and what good is life without having time to appreciate and celebrate the wonderful and aspects of life, like art. But yeah, I wasn't a super big fan of it, but I thought for a 55-minute movie that was just dropped out of nowhere, pretty good. Like, I didn't have high expectations for it anyway.
Right. Yeah. I kind of come at it too with the angle of, I first heard of this, over the weekend, like everyone else, and I was like, oh, what is it? Another visual album like Lemonade or Endless? Is it a short film? A lot of musicians make short films. I'm like, I don't care. No, they're like, oh no, it's a real movie. Hugh Morai shot. I'm like, all right, well, if Hugh Morai shot it, I guess I need to see it. Shot it in Cuba. Oh, that's cool. It's on Amazon right now for free. And I was like, all right, it sounds legit. I guess I have to see what the fuss is about. Yeah, I think the capitalism art message, again, like, I think it works as a framework well enough for what the movie is, but if this was, I think, a little fleshed out, written a little better, and thus a little longer, you probably could have tried to actually make that point a little stronger. But for what it is, it's entertaining. It's okay.
Yeah, and here in Mirai, this was really well shot. I kind of had that like grainy, almost like like 60 millimeter type feel to it. So I thought that added a lot, and a lot of just the scenes on it were just beautiful. So got to give Hiro Murai a shout out on it. Something that was also beautifully shot was Terry Gilliam's The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. Now, I know that you saw this in theaters last week. I watched it on a computer this weekend. Very interesting film with a lot of history leading up to it. Maybe you can give the people a quick breakdown of some of the weirdness and history leading up to the making of this.
Yeah, so I don't want to go too deep on that. There's a great Vulture piece called The Man Who Almost Was Killed by Don Quixote. It's this long Terry Gilliam profile from like 2 weeks ago, and it basically explains the whole story in a really great way. But Terry Gilliam, as we know, is a acclaimed UK director, famous for being part of Monty Python, co-directing Monty Python The Holy Grail, also known for 12 Monkeys, The Fisher King, etc. He's pretty old now. And he's known for his movies. I think quality-wise, they're kind of up and down overall, but he has his own unique style, his own unique worldview, we'll say. And he's wanted to make the Man Who Killed Don Quixote this story about, obviously, the famous tale from Cervantes. And he originally got the first bit of financing for this movie back in 1989. And he went through all these hoops to make this movie. They actually went to shoot it in 2001 in Spain with this guy, Jean Rochefort, this famous French actor, as well as Johnny Depp, a young Johnny Depp.
Yep.
And the shoot was famously horrible, and it failed, and they had to stop making the movie. And they actually made a documentary called Lost in La Mancha about the failed shoot. It's legendary, almost like Apocalypse Now level, hell, except they didn't actually finish the movie. So it's quite the story. Then he didn't really stop throughout the past, decade and a half since. And he finally got it together, just getting financing here and there. It's really fascinating. And Amazon actually came in at the last minute, was going to help distribute it. Then they ended up bailing on him last year because one of these producers was suing for more credit and finance, and they're going to keep it from Cannes. And it's a really sad story because Terry finally got this movie financed and he got it made, and now some guy's going to stop him from showing it at the film festival. And then Amazon backs out on him. So thus I had to see it in a Fathom event, a one night only. And to their credit, Fathom events had this basically everywhere from what I could tell. And now it's just going to be in a few more screenings, I think, here and there throughout the major cities. And then I'm assume they'll sell it to some service eventually. There's no news on that. I don't think it'll be on Amazon now, given how they treated him. But
no,
quite the story. I encourage everyone to check it out because I think the story really frames how you watch this movie, because you can't help but think about the meta narrative to it, But I mean, what did you think of the movie itself? It's a long movie and it's quite indulgent, like a lot of Gilliam's work. But I mean, what did you think of it overall?
I thought it was pretty good. It was definitely long. It bored me at some parts. I felt like it got a bit repetitive in terms of the script and some of the things happening. There's only so many times I can see Jonathan Pryce being crazy old Don Quixote, and Toby, played by Adam Driver, having to be no, don't you understand? This isn't what's going on. It was just okay, you've broken my will. I get that this guy is Don Quixote. I can see where this is going. Let's just get there. Also, I'm sure that there's a lot of metaphor and symbolism and probably parallels to other stories that I just either don't catch, or maybe I would just need to do more reading on. But I didn't find it to be super engaging. I found that third act to just be absolutely absurd, and that was by far my favorite part. But then, whenever they get to that Russian oligarch's house, or I guess compound or whatever it is, that's when things really seem to take off for me.
Right.
Yeah, just some ridiculous place. And I think I described it to you as a fever dream. It's just you don't know what's real, what's actually going on. It's pretty intense. But overall, for a movie that had all these problems and he's been trying to make it for so long, I thought it came out pretty well. Did you enjoy this movie though?
I did. The thing is, I actually never watched a trailer for this. I didn't actually know the story really. I just knew the story of the movie that he made. So I kind of went in not really knowing what to expect beyond knowing the general story of the actual Don Quixote book and whatnot. And when it starts, Toby is this wealthy, successful commercial director, I guess you could say. And he's in Spain on the shoot. It doesn't seem to be going well. But the thing is, Fathom events often do featurettes and stuff at the start of their screenings. So I thought, because I got there a second late, and they usually don't have preview. So I was like, is this the movie? Is Adam Driver actually, is that his character? Because it gets really meta, and then Adam Driver, Toby, he sees his original student film, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, and I'm like, wait, am I watching the feature? Or am I watching some behind the scenes skit they made? I was initially really confused about what I was watching. But overall, I found it really amusing. I think you're right. There's a lot of repetitive scenes. I think ultimately the message, it's a really whimsical movie, and I think the message is kind of fumbled a little bit. It's a little messy.
Yeah,
they made this movie a little tighter. I think you could have maybe focused in on that, but I don't know how much that was really in mind. Honestly, they did shoot this in Spain. I think it looks really cool, and that third act setting that you mentioned, like that like castle from the douchey Russian dude, looked really cool as well. I saw some critiques about the treatment of women in the film. They're usually need to be saved or sex crazed. It's a little backward view of some sort. It sounds like an old white dude to me. Made the movie make sense. But I thought Driver was really good, both in the beginning when he's just kind of being this douchey Hollywood type, and then putting up with Don Quixote, and then kind of changing and seeing the light, quote unquote, at the end. I like Driver's performance. I think the success of the movie is largely based on what Driver can do just to elevate material. He elevated lots of things he do, and I mean, if Johnny Depp was in this now, knowing what we know about how Johnny Depp is these days, I don't think it would have worked as well. No question.
I couldn't even really see Johnny Depp doing as good of a job back then. It just seems like Driver has that like perfect. He's able to walk that line between being douchey and goofy in such a genuine way that I can't really think of another actor who could have played that part any better. And I think he was by far the best part of the movie for me. Also, just really well shot, and like it was obviously shot over in Europe. I didn't check if it was actually in Spain or not, but just really beautiful. The whole countryside and everything about it I thought was really well done. And seeing like the little towns there that they go into, I thought was also really cool and really well done. So right. Also, Adam Driver can look young. Like he looked like a kid in the flashback scenes, which I was kind of surprised at.
I saw this brought up, and I think it's a good point. The movie is quite meta. I mean, Toby's reflecting on his first student film that he made for no money back in the day, right? And it's the story of this movie ultimately is how it got made. Quite meta, but also I think there's almost a missed opportunity, because if there was more commentary about how Toby's little movie changed this poor town in the Spanish countryside, I think you could have maybe had a more profound message about how art affects things and whatnot. But they didn't quite go down that road. They just kind of acknowledged it and moved on. But yeah, I mean, I would recommend this just because it's unlike most things you would watch. It's a Gilliam film at the end of the day. And because it's a Gilliam film, it's up and down. But I liked it a lot.
What did you think of High Life? Because I know you checked that out. I didn't get a chance to see it.
So, High Life, High Life is an A24 movie that premiered at Toronto International Film Festival last September and was immediately bought by A24 and then distributed in limited release 2 weeks ago. I think this past week where I caught it, it's only in 32 theaters, so it's ramping up slowly. And it's directed by Claire Denis, who's this renowned French director. This is her first English language film. And I actually saw her most recent movie, Let the Sun Shine In, that came out last year. It's actually on Hulu right now. And that was like a rom-com of sorts about older romance for older people. And it's quite a good movie. It was really well received. I actually didn't quite appreciate as much as I thought, because I think perhaps because it was in subtitles, it was in French, obviously, I perhaps didn't quite pick up on as much of the humor. So I feel like I was just kind of missing stuff as I was going along, but I still thought the movie was really well done. But High Life is in space. And if you know anything about me, that's my thing. And also, it stars Robert Pattinson. He's basically it's a bit of a two-hander with Juliette Binoche, who also was in Let the Sun Shine In. But Robert Pattinson is really the main driving force of this movie. And I think going in, if you're watching this, if you're aware of this movie's existence, again, small release, low profile, all that, you probably know by now that Robert Pattinson is quietly like one of the most exciting actors we have right now, just because this is a dude who got super famous and wealthy off of Twilight, big blockbuster franchise, right? First got well known for Harry Potter briefly, right?
Yes.
And then what does he do after Twilight? He just decides to make really cool choices basically in the face of his good looking traits and his stardom. Moves like The Rover and Good Time, Lost City of Z, transformative roles that leading men that are good looking and famous don't usually take when they're really hot and young, And Pattinson, I think, it just kind of comes off as like a true thespian because he's just doing these cool roles, and he'll be in The King with Timothée Chalamet later this year, so I'm excited for that. But High Life, I don't want to really spoil anything about it because, again, no one's really seen it yet, but it's the premise is that we're some nebulous future on Earth. The government is now sending prisoners, death row prisoners, convicts, into space as like guinea pigs to test things. And Arpats is on one of these like vessels going into deep space, and they're going to a black hole to try and harvest the energy for Earth.
And we now know what it looks like.
Yeah, exactly. And A24 used that for marketing. Really smart.
Yeah.
And Juliette Binoche, who is also a criminal of sorts, like everyone on the ship, is like this kind of this devious doctor character that kind of keeps the whole crew alive in a sense, but also has their own motivations. And I don't really want to say much more. Andre 3000 is in this, as well as Mia Goth. It's very well acted. A lot of other European actors I'm not familiar with, but they were all good. And it's a really cerebral, thoughtful movie on space, very existential. And because Pattinson's so good and he has to do a lot of scenes by himself, it's just really thoughtful. And there's a bunch of standout moments in it. I don't want to really spoil them. A lot of them are kind of spoilery, but it's funny. I saw a review comparing this to First Reformed, and I have to agree. I think the ideas that First Reformed brings to the table in terms of what Ethan Hawke's going through and, you know, what he's thinking about and how he's changing, there's a lot of that in High Life. And
shit.
I mean, Claire Denis, she doesn't even want you to call it sci-fi, but I mean, it's really sci-fi, but it's thoughtful, and I think it's really cool, and I really hope more people see this because it's my number one movie of the year right now, above Us.
Wow.
Again, I like sci-fi a lot, so I'm inclined a little bit to like this, but I was quite impressed, so I really recommend everyone give High Life a chance, and let me know if you do see it, because I'd love to talk about it more.
Maybe we'll follow up when I get a chance to see it, because I definitely want to check it out. Why don't we keep it moving, though? Something that came out on FX this past Wednesday, I believe, it was Fosse Verdon, which stars Sam Rockwell and Michelle Williams. We've been anticipating this drop. Bob Fosse, very famous Broadway musical director. I believe he also did some movies, which the show, the premiere at least, talks about how those were good and bad in a lot of ways. But what did you think of this premiere? Because I think there were some really good parts and some parts I wasn't so keen on. I'd like to hear what you thought.
Right, so the thing is, we've only seen the premiere, like everyone else, but all the critics have actually seen 5 of the 8 episodes. So reading their impressions about most of the season was interesting. We'll get to that. But the thing about Bob Fosse I thought was very interesting, because again, his whole run is largely before our time. But obviously very influential, and Gwen Verdon, who's played by Michelle Williams, is also quite influential, although quite not as famous. Fosse is the only person to ever win an Emmy, Tony, and Oscar in the same year, back in 1973. Like, forget an EGOT. He did all that shit mad fast.
Good.
Pretty good. I think he won 9 Tonys overall. So, really talented and influential director, choreographer, and the show is largely about that. I think the problem with people's reception to the show is that Bob Fosse as a guy is less than good. We can get to that in a second. But I think for a premiere, I think for a pilot of sorts, what I liked about it was that it just kind of drops you right into this world. I think we're picking up in, was it the early 60s, I think? He's working on his first or second film, and like they're dropping a lot of his works and Verdon's works, and you just kind of have to follow along. They're not really going to hold your hand about it, and I did a lot of Wikipediaing afterwards just to try and piece things together. But I like that they just kind of throw you into it, and it looks really cool. It's obviously really of the time, and Rockwell and Williams, what do you expect? They're really good. They're kind of transforming into these roles. And this first episode is largely about Bob, and it quickly shows you that he's got some issues as a guy, despite being a talented, a problematic genius. something we've heard of before, a difficult man. And we've seen lots of difficult men on TV. Usually they're fictional, though. This is a real person. So I really like the premiere. I'm curious to keep watching the show and just learn more about the story and see the performances. But you don't get as much of Verdon as the title card, the name of the show would suggest. The show is based off of a biography called Fosse. And I know Matt Zollernzeitz proposed that maybe by calling it Fosse Verdon, they're giving Verdon more credit as the woman behind the man. It's often overlooked. Maybe like we're retroactively doing that. But they didn't really show as much of that as you'd want, at least in the first episode. But what did you think?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Rockwell and Williams are fantastic. I thought the costume designs, the dance choreography, bringing in the show tune numbers, all of it was so. Yeah, it was just, but it really just like brings you in. It's very entertaining. But my critique is basically what you mentioned at the end, that I didn't get enough Michelle Williams in this, and I understand that this is probably going to be mostly about Fosse's journey, it seems like, which I don't know if I'm as interested in seeing just his journey as I am in seeing like the interplay, because I think the scene that was most interesting to me was when he gets the phone call that his movie flopped. And, Verdon comes in and she's like comforting him. And he's like, oh, no, look, you're right on the front page here. Like, you're not even in the movie and they're talking about you or whatever. And it was like mildly verbally and emotionally abusive in a way. And I was kind of like, now this is where like I think I want to like sink my teeth into, because it seems like there's some really interesting dynamics at play here, not only within Bob Fosse, but within their relationship. But you almost get none of Verdon's background in this premiere. And that's something I worry, is if it's going to be a 50-50 type thing, if it's going to be 60-40. I just want more Michelle Williams, especially because I think people know she's good, but I think she's still one of the most underrated actresses out there right now. Overall, I can't wait to see more of this show, and I think I'm going to end up liking it a lot. But just that was my one main critique of the first episode for sure.
It's got a really impressive creative team behind it too. Lin-Manuel Miranda, EP, Stephen Levinson from Dear Evan Hansen is largely showrunning it. Joel Fields from The Americans is involved. Impressive group, and Lynn and Levinson. You'd hope obviously they know all about these people. You'd think they'd have more to say about Verdon. And from what the critics have said, have seen more. There is this largely bottle episodes all about Verdon, so I looking forward to seeing more. And I think it's hard to. I don't want to be too critical of the choice that we've talked about with who you're focusing on, because ultimately, as we've said, it's really impressive both to look at, to watch. I think it's well written, and the scene Bob has with the producer in the restaurant, which is obvious tell of what's to come. That was great. And like, it seems like a lot of the criticism is kind of like a criticism because of the time we're in right now. Like, we've gotten a lot of difficult men shows. And I guess maybe people are a little put off by seeing one about a real guy, real difficult man. And like, it's like, I don't think anyone's trying to like cancel Bob Fosse or anything. He's dead already. Like, it doesn't really matter. We know he was a philanderer, but I also don't want to use that against the show too much. I mean, you can critique the show without critiquing Fosse as a guy, you know? And if they in fact choose to make it all about Bob, despite presenting it as a partnership show, then you can critique it. But let's let that happen first before we say that. Sure. It's not worth the time.
Yeah, and just one last thing. I think you mentioned it, but I really like how they have the countdown clock, so to speak. Like,
yeah, that's cool.
18 years before, it was 3 minutes before, something like that. I'm really interested to see what that's leading up to. And I'm sure if I read more reviews, I could probably find it. But
I know. I found out what it's leading up to, but don't read if you don't need to.
I've been trying to stay away from it because I want to kind of have some surprise, so to speak. But why don't we jump into and finish off? Start with Star Wars, ending with Game of Thrones. Season 8 premiere last night. a lot of mirroring from the very first episode of season 1 in this. Big reunion, big setup episode, which is pretty much what we all expected. We got little kids being pinned to walls. I mean, we got people riding dragons, and the person who owns the dragons not even being like that surprised that this person can do it. Just some a lot going on in this episode. So Dave, where do you want to start? What stood out most to you in the premiere?
I just want to start with how impressed I was with it as a premiere. As you mentioned, there's a lot of setup. Generally, beginnings of seasons in Thrones have to set a lot of tables, set a lot of characters. They're usually all over the place. You gotta reestablish the plots and get them moving, But as we mentioned in our theories segment, let's check that out, youtube.com/nostalgiapod. Because all the characters are in the same place, you get to have the best of both worlds. You get to set up the plot while also have lots of that palace intrigue that the show is so famous and so good at, And I just really like seeing all these reunions that we knew were coming. Arya and Gendry, Arya and the Hound, Jaime and Bran at the end. We didn't really get it yet. Sansa and Daenerys for the first time. Jon and Arya. That's probably the one everyone wanted to see the most. Just really cool bits of payoff. And meanwhile, Jon rides a dragon in the first episode. Sam tells Jon he's actually Aegon Targaryen in the first episode. We find out the Night King has already passed last hearth, and has killed young Lord Umber.
Ned Umber.
All of them. We get all that in the first episode, and it's under an hour. But I thought it was well paced and feel rushed. The Tyrion Sansa reunion I thought was really great. Really establishes how much Sansa has grown, and also how Tyrion has kind of stumbled the past few years. And I think the most important thing they had to set up was the distrust the Northmen have for Dany as a foreigner, outsider coming up into their world, and also truly Sansa's distrust or aversion to putting all their eggs in the Dany basket. And then even things that we thought they kind of got away from in season 7. They talk about a lot of logistics, right? It's like Cersei's like, I was promised elephants, and everyone's like, oh cool, that'll be cool to see the elephants. And then the Golden Company leader, I forget his name, he's like, nah, bro, they don't like the ship, the sea voyage. Meanwhile, HBO is like, too expensive. We got dragons to make, but
yeah, we got dragons to make, but we forgot about the direwolves. Sorry, man, don't have enough in the budget for fucking direwolves.
And Sansa though is like, how do we feed these dragons? Bro?
Yeah,
and land for this shit. Like these are like really like.
How do we feed all the people in Winterfell? I mean,
excellent.
Goddamn. Yeah, I was like, really good point. Honestly, Sansa asking the right questions. No, I agree. I think they did a really good job setting up a lot of things this episode. I was surprised at how much we got right away. I really liked most of the reunions. I thought Arya and the Hound was fantastic. Arya Jon was probably like the most emotional one overall. Just seeing like these two curmudgeons, so to speak, like actually be happy was kind of nice. Right. Arya Gendry, I mean, they're totally gonna fuck, so that's super cool. Yeah, definitely good for them. Jon did fuck, I guess, near a waterfall in the snow with two dragons watching. Like that they could have cut that scene down just a little bit. Like I got it.
It's funny. The show this episode at least produced a lot of memeable moments.
Oh yeah,
Drogon, looking
Bran,
obviously, but I didn't feel like they were forced at all.
No.
Which I think is important. Like a lot of shows, especially now, they can try and strive for the social footprint to keep themselves on the air. But Thrones, I think it clearly felt like a Thrones episode that saw the identity of the show, the best parts of the show, despite being very close to the end, despite having a lot of the story condensed and only a few plots out there now. So I thought it was very impressive. And, the cool thing about the Jon Arya reunion, which everyone was happy to see, and as you mentioned, really sweet, but they do present the tension with Sansa and Daenerys, and I think that's gonna keep coming up. Also, something that I don't think anyone had really talked about, I certainly didn't think of it, we didn't discuss it, Sam learning that his dad and brother died was not on my mind at all. And I thought that was really well done. And using that to have emotional Sam reveal to John what he and Bran know, I thought that was excellent. So I thought it was a great premiere.
Yeah, I was a little bit. I mean, I thought the scene was well acted between Sam and Dany and Jorah, obviously, but I was a little bit like, Sam, you gotta like take a deep breath before you're like, would you have done this? Oh yeah, because you're the fucking claim. You have the claim to the Iron Throne. I was like, dude, like take a deep breath. Like let's talk this out first. And that's also why you needed Bran to like be there with him when they talk about this. Like Bran just being like, nah, can't do it. Not gonna be able to do it. Like, man. And also, shout out the Bran Jaime moment at the end. I thought that was really, really great. It was, like I said, it wasn't my favorite reunion, but just like what a great moment to end the episode on, and like the mirroring from the first episode where the last scene is Jaime pushing him out the window. It's just so excellent. Any other moments or anything that stood out? I mean, you got SEAL Team Greyjoy going in there. I mean, the Golden Company / Greyjoy Army just taken out that easily. Like, I'm not afraid of the Golden Army at this point.
Yeah, well, company. You figure that the Golden Company's like hanging in King's Landing, right? The ships are not as guarded. That was my take on it, but I like that because they got Yara.
You mean they're not guarding? Yeah, they're not guarding the prize prisoner. Like what?
I mean, it's Euron. He's a cocky guy, right? But they got Yara out of the way,
literally
off the Iron Islands. She'll probably never be heard from or harmed at this point. And we're getting Theon back to Winterfell, so he could die. Good.
Yeah.
Not wasting time, but done well. It doesn't feel rushed, but it's efficient. I really like the moment where all the Northmen, in the Vale, everyone they're chilling in the hall, and with Dany and Sansa and Jon and all of them, and young Lord Umber, his last moments. He's like, my lady, my lord, my queen. Like, I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, and really well done to kind of show like how I think everybody in that room was kind of feeling like uneasy with the situation. I also thought the scene where they found Ned Umber pinned up against the wall, the message from the White Walkers, was actually pretty terrifying. I thought, the way that he like, you see his eyes like slowly start glowing, and then he starts screaming. Really, really like, I think set the table well there. And the whole thing with Bronn as well, where Cersei wants, and also Cersei this episode was just, I thought, fantastic. Just, the most quotable line, that Drake line that's not actually a Drake line, coming out of this, where she says, if you want a whore, go buy one. If you want a queen, earn one. And then just immediately doubles down, just fucks him anyway. Like, good for her, man. Like,
that's awesome.
Just the whole episode was really good. I really enjoyed it. So, I'm looking forward to, crazy. Only 5 more. I feel kind of sad about it, honestly. Like, we lead up to it so much, and it's like, oh, okay, here it is.
Yeah, well, the hype was in full force. Actually, let me check the ratings while we're talking. Just feels like Game of Thrones content, Game of Thrones awareness had never been higher. And I mean, everyone's just really excited. Let's see. 17.4 million viewers. That's multi-platform record. Let's see. Yeah, that's a record for Thrones anyway. Really massive. Obviously, that doesn't compare to like football games, but
right. That's an insane amount for a TV show. Yeah, and who actually I thought they did the best job with in this episode was Arya, just in general. She's standing there at the beginning, just part of the crowd, which I think kind of speaks to her like faceless man training in a way, where she's just blending in, even though she is this like part of the whole family. But then they kind of brought her humanity out, which you haven't seen a lot of in past seasons. So I thought they did that in a really, really great way. So just shout out the writers for that. I think they handled this episode really, really well.
Yeah, if you watch, if you miss it, it's on YouTube. The brief premiere preview of the next episode looks like Beric, Tormund, and crew and Ed they get back to Winterfell, I was actually curious about that because they were coming down from the wall at Last Hearth. Last Hearth is still pretty far from the wall. You Google the map of the north. It's Last Hearth was like the northernmost castle for any of the northern houses, so they're still pretty far away, but I guess they're going to sneak past the Army of the Dead somehow, beat them there. There's less of them. I guess they can travel faster. But yeah, I mean, judging by that preview, it looks like we're going to start to get some conflict early. So
definitely
exciting. Who knows what happens?
Yeah, and also I think a Jaime Lannister trial, it seems like, of sorts. So some very interesting stuff this next episode, and then we got the Battle of Winterfell. So lots to be looking forward to. Yeah, seriously. I mean, if you're not watching Game of Thrones and for some reason you're listening to this, it's too late. You can't catch up, and we don't want you to. So.
I mean, at this rate, I'm just like, I'm like, if you're not caught up, it's your fault. I'm sorry, I don't give a shit about that anymore. Like, I've been watching this show. I started watching this show before season 2 ended. Like, I caught up on season 1 and then watched the end of season 2 live. Like, I was on the shit early. Everyone else got in a few years later. That's fine. If you're not in now, you made your bed, bro. Sorry, get spoiled. Like, Kit Harington's on SNL. Guess he didn't die. That's your fault if you didn't find this out already.
We're going to wrap up there. What do we got next week?
So next week's a little light, for right now anyway. Under the Silver Lake is the only movie that I am aware of. We'll see if it's a wide enough release. That's a Andrew Garfield film that was pushed back several times, finally coming out. And obviously, it's the week before Endgame, so most movies are clearing out the decks and just getting out of the way for that. So we'll talk about Under Silver Lake if we get a chance to see that. Similarly, it's not much really new TV. Obviously, we'll touch on Thrones again, but Hannah, which came out on Amazon Prime a few weeks ago, we reviewed the premiere on YouTube. Check that out. We're going to touch in on that 8 episodes season, see how that ends. And then music-wise, again, nothing super big. We'll see if Kevin Abstract does in fact release another EP. Lizzo is releasing an album. She just performed at Coachella. Janelle Monáe was cheering her on. Looks great. Black Bear's releasing an album. Black Bear low-key sucks, so I don't know if we'll talk about that. I might see Peterloo, which is in limited release, like High Life. But yeah, it could be label, so we'll find some more stuff to talk about. But I mean, now we're in Throne season. Like the next 5 weeks are gonna be wild.
Yeah, we'll do some death predictions before Battle of Winterfell too. So got a lot to talk about. But
maybe we can do some Endgame predictions next week. We'll have some time.
Absolutely. We'll find some stuff to talk about. So if you want to catch all of it, subscribe to the YouTube channel. SoundCloud.com/NowstalgiaPod to find any way you can subscribe and stay up to date. And just protect your neck. It's dark days out there. Don't end up like our good friend, Lord Ned Umber. Tough stuff. Anyways, we'll catch you next week.